Imagine a cage so perfect, so comfortable, that the prisoner inside doesn't want to leave. Now imagine that cage is your mind. And the jailer? A system so invisible, so normalized, that you don't even realize it's there. This is the world you live in. And this is how capitalism hijacked your mind. Part 1. The system you can't see. How capitalism got into your head. Capitalism isn't just an economy, it's a belief system. When people hear capitalism, they think of Wall Street, corporations, billionaires. But the real power of capitalism isn't just in who owns what. It's in what you believe, what you desire, what you fear, what you think is normal. Capitalism isn't just a market structure. It's a psychological operating system. It's the background code that's been running in your brain since the day you were born. You were taught to chase success, to measure your worth in productivity, to consume to feel better, to compare yourself to others, constantly. And the worst part? You believe these are your thoughts, but they're not. They were planted there. Marx knew the mind could be owned. Karl Marx saw it before almost anyone else. He wasn't just a critic of wealth and equality. He was a prophet of mental slavery. He coined a phrase, false consciousness. False consciousness is when you're convinced you're free, while serving a system that exploits you. It's when the worker idolizes the boss, when the consumer worships the brand that manipulates them, when people vote against their own interests because they've internalized the foundation, manufactured desire. Let's take a moment to define what we're really talking about. Capitalism doesn't just control the means of production. It controls the means of desire. It tells you what to want, then sells it to you. It tells you what success looks like, then moves the goalposts every year. It gives you a problem you didn't know you had, and then offers the solution in the form of a product. This is not conspiracy. This is the foundation of modern marketing, behavioral economics, and neuromarketing. Every ad you've seen, every influencer you follow, every motivational video you scroll past, it's all part of a psychological ecosystem designed to hook into your unconscious fears and cravings. And the goal isn't freedom, it's obedience, the feedback loop of modern slavery. Let's walk through the loop. You're told you're not enough. You're shown what enough looks like: money, muscles, beauty, influence. You're promised that buying, working, grinding, and conforming will get you there. You sacrifice time, energy, joy, and health to pursue that ideal. When you still don't feel satisfied, the system tells you it's your fault. So you buy more, work more, and numb more, until you're too exhausted to even ask if there's another way. This isn't economics. This is psychological colonization, and we've normalized it. We call this life. Capitalism becomes identity. Eventually, capitalism stops being a system out there. It becomes who you are. It shapes your values. It tells you how to define success. It dictates how you see yourself and how you judge others. You don't see people. You see winners and losers, consumers and influencers, leaders and followers. You start asking the wrong questions. Am I productive enough? Am I falling behind? Am I valuable? You measure worth in metrics: income, followers, likes, net worth. Not depth, not character, not peace. Marx called this alienation, but Freud might call it fragmentation, the splitting of the self, the creation of a persona that smiles for Instagram while screaming inside. Breaking the illusion, first awareness, then action. So what do? You can't just quit capitalism. You're inside it, but you can resist the psychological invasion. It starts with awareness, with asking questions, with refusing to internalize a system that profits from your emptiness. It starts with reclaiming language. You're not a content creator. You're a person expressing something real. You're not a brand. You're a being with needs deeper than money. You're not a consumer. You're a citizen, a soul, a seeker. If you don't define yourself, the system will do it for you. What's coming next? This was just the beginning. In the next segment, Segment 2, Engineered Desire, the capitalist invention of the unhappy mind. Capitalism doesn't need you to be fulfilled. It needs you to be almost fulfilled, just far enough from satisfaction to keep reaching, buying, clicking, hoping. This isn't just about money. This is about your desire. Because when capitalism hijacked your mind, the first system it rewired was what you want. The birth of manufactured craving. Before the 20th century, people mostly bought what they needed: food, tools, shelter, occasionally status symbols, yes. But for the average person, life was about survival. Then came Freud. Then came Edward Bernays, the nephew of Freud. the man who fused psychoanalysis with marketing. He asked a terrifying question. What if we could sell products not based on their utility, but on people's unconscious desires? It worked. He made women smoke in public by linking cigarettes to freedom. He made people buy cars by selling them as symbols of masculinity. He wasn't selling things. He was selling emotions. And that became the blueprint for everything. Your mind on marketing. Let's bring it to the modern era. Today, everything is an ad. Your social feed, your morning news, your favorite podcast, even your internal dialogue. You deserve it. You're not good enough without this. Fix your skin, your bank account, your body, your confidence. This is not accidental. It's the result of billions of dollars in psychological research, focused not on helping you, but on making you want. The human brain, Freud argued, seeks to resolve internal tension. Capitalism hijacks this process. It creates the tension, then offers the product as relief. And here's the sinister brilliance. It never actually resolves the tension, because if it did, you'd stop buying. So you keep chasing, not because you're greedy, but because you were taught to crave the craving itself. Dopamine, the currency of capitalist control. Let's talk about dopamine, the brain's reward chemical. We used to get it from things like bonding, achievement, survival wins. Now, a notification gives you a hit. An online sale gives you a hit. A new like gives you a hit. Your brain is on a stimulus treadmill, and every company wants to be the one that delivers your next hit. This is biological colonization. It's not just your wallet that's being targeted, it's your neurology. Freud believed the human psyche was a battlefield of tension between desire and repression. Capitalism turned that tension into an algorithm. Instagram scrolls, engineered. TikTok pacing, engineered. Online shopping prompts, engineered. Every digital move you make teaches the system what makes you twitch, what makes you spend, what makes you surrender. You don't own your cravings anymore. They own you, selling you a self that doesn't exist. Here's the real tragedy. The system doesn't just sell you products. It sells you a self-image, and it's always out of reach. You're never productive enough, never hot enough, never rich enough. Even your authentic self is now monetized. You have to perform your identity to gain validation. You're not just a person anymore. You're a brand, a profile, a content creator, a niche. And the more you perform, the more you lose touch with what's actually real in you. This is Freud's ego split on a societal scale. A fractured self, constantly managing impressions, chasing approval, and repressing truth in favor of optics. Because the system doesn't reward authenticity, it rewards visibility, the illusion of choice. You might say, but I choose what I want. Do you? Let's test that. Why do you want the life you want? Where did that image come from? Your dream car. Who told you that's success? Your ideal body. Who decided that's beauty? Your goals. Are they yours, or are they software updates from social media? Marx warned us that capitalism would turn everything, including human needs, into commodities. Freud would say you've internalized someone else's narrative. And that's the point. The system wins when you no longer ask why you want something. You just chase it, blindly, endlessly. The addiction loop. Let's map the addiction loop. The system identifies a deep human insecurity, loneliness, fear, inadequacy. It crafts an image of success that appears to solve it. It attaches products, lifestyles, and services to that. The myth of fulfillment. Fulfillment is the final illusion. You're told, once you get X, then you'll be free. More money, more followers, more control. But here's what Marx and Freud would both agree on. As long as the system defines fulfillment for you, it will always be just out of reach. The house, the watch, the salary, they don't make you free. They deepen the illusion. You don't need more to feel alive. You need to break the loop. But that requires something dangerous, something subversive. Stillness, silence, reflection. Things that don't make money for anyone. Things that terrify a system built on constant stimulation. The way out, reclaiming desire. If you felt hollow, even when achieving your goals, that's not a personal flaw. It's evidence that your real self is still alive, buried under layers of programmed craving. So how do you start waking up? Here are your first acts of rebellion. Track your cravings. Before every purchase, every scroll, every dopamine hit, pause. Ask, who benefits from this? Reclaim boredom. Let your brain sit in silence. That's where real desires live. Create, don't just consume. Capitalism thrives when you consume. Your soul thrives when you create. Question your values. Who told you what success is? Rewrite the definition. Choose depth over speed. What's slow, hard, and meaningful is the most dangerous thing in the world for systems of control. Marx wanted workers to own the means of production. But first, you must own the means of your desire. Your mind wasn't designed for endless consumption. It was designed for meaning, for connection, for truth. But you've been taught to numb the hunger, not feed it. You were never broken. You were just profitable. Next time, in the next segment, we'll explore the second hijacking, the productivity trap, why rest makes you guilty, and hustle is the new religion. Because capitalism didn't just hijack your desire, it hijacked your time, and then it sold it back to you, one paycheck at a time. Segment 3. The Productivity Trap. How capitalism made you fear rest. What happens when you stop working? Not just physically, but mentally. When you stop grinding, striving, proving? Do you feel peace? Or do you feel guilt? If you feel guilty resting, congratulations. You're not lazy. You're programmed. And that programming comes from the psychological engine of capitalism, a machine that Marx tried to dismantle and Freud unintentionally helped build. This is how capitalism hijacked your time, your self-worth, and your very soul. Time wasn't always money. Let's go back. Before the Industrial Revolution, most people's lives followed natural rhythms. Sunrise and sunset, planting and harvest, work and rest. Productivity wasn't a religion. Then factories arrived. Suddenly, time became currency. You were paid by the hour. Your value became measurable in units of labor. And most importantly, your identity became tied to your output. Marx called this the commodification of labor. Your effort wasn't yours anymore. It was bought, sold, measured, and managed. You weren't working to live. You were living to work. From worker to machine. Freud talked about the superego, the part of your psyche that internalizes rules, norms, expectations. The superego tells you, be productive. Don't waste time. Earn your worth. In a capitalist society, this voice becomes supercharged. It doesn't whisper, it screams. You're not doing enough. You should be farther along. Rest is laziness. You are what you produce. This is how capitalism colonized your inner voice. It turned Freud's superego into a 24/7 performance coach. And it doesn't let you rest, not because the system needs you busy, but because if you stop, you might start asking dangerous questions. Why am I doing this? Is this actually fulfilling? What would I do if I wasn't exhausted? And those questions, they're a threat to the system. The myth of the hustle. Enter the hustle culture, a modern religion built on burnout. Entrepreneurship is praised like sainthood. Rest is treated like sin. Social media turned productivity into performance. Post your to-do list. Brag about your all-nighter. Celebrate how busy you are. The message? Exhaustion is proof of value. But here's what Marx would say. The worker becomes an appendage of the machine. Today, the machine is digital. It's content, calendars, side hustles, optimization apps. And the modern worker isn't just on the factory floor. You're the factory. You monetize your time, your skills, even your personality. You brand yourself. You promote yourself. You sell yourself. And when you fail to meet the system's expectations, you don't protest. Guilt is the weapon. Let's talk about guilt. Why do you feel guilty when you rest? Why do you feel like you're falling behind? Why does silence feel unbearable? Because you've been taught that stillness is wasted potential. That leisure is laziness. That if you're not producing, you're losing. But that's not human. That's programming. Capitalism didn't just steal your labor. It redefined your value. Freud said guilt arises when we fail to live up to the ego ideal. Capitalism inserts itself into that ideal. Now your superego isn't just your conscience. It's your employer, your competition, your audience. You can't escape it because it's inside you. Rest is revolutionary. Here's the truth. Rest is not laziness. It's resistance. Because when you rest, not as recovery for more work, but as a reclaiming of self, you disrupt the system. You say, my worth is not defined by output. I don't exist to perform. I don't owe anyone my exhaustion. Marx would call this the beginning of liberation. Freud would call it individuation, the process of becoming whole, integrated, self-aware. Real rest isn't escapism. It's awakening, the ritual of doing nothing. Let's get practical. Want to break the productivity spell? Do nothing. Sit in silence. Not to recharge. Not to plan. Segment 4. The identity market. How capitalism monetized the self. You don't just buy products anymore. You are the product. Your preferences, your data, your behavior, your identity, sold, sliced, and resold in a marketplace of digital mirrors. But what happens to the self when it becomes currency? When who you are is no longer a question of depth, but a strategy of performance. This isn't just surveillance capitalism. This is identity capitalism, and it has turned you into a brand. The self becomes a profile. Your phone knows more about you than your family does. Your search history, your purchases, your fears, your fantasies, all of it feeds the system. You're not browsing the internet. The internet is browsing you. And every action is added to a profile, a psychographic fingerprint that advertisers use to know not just what you'll buy, but who you're becoming. This is not personalization. This is prediction. This is control. The rise of the brand itself. Let's step back. In pre-capitalist societies, identity was shaped by community, tradition, and storytelling. Then, modernity shifted us toward individualism, the self as independent, self-made, self-actualizing. Capitalism didn't stop there. It took the idea of the individual and said, if the self is unique, it can be sold. That's when branding entered the personal. Suddenly, your identity wasn't just who you are, it was how you're seen. Your profile picture, your content, your aesthetic, your vibe, everything became curated. You became a digital storefront. And like every storefront, you exist to attract attention, create desire, and convert it into action, monetizing your own reflection. In today's world, authenticity is a strategy. You share your life for reach. You open up for engagement. You optimize your vulnerability. Even resistance gets commodified. Anti-capital. What's lost when identity becomes strategy? When your self becomes your business card? When every moment is content? When every choice is branding? You lose three things. Silence, because you must always be visible. Privacy, because every private act is a missed opportunity for engagement. Spontaneity, because every deviation is off-brand. Capitalism doesn't just want your labor anymore. It wants your face, your name, your story, your soul, and it will give you money, likes, and praise to make the trade, reclaiming the inner self. So how do you take it back? How do you stop being your own marketing campaign? Here are 5 steps. Create without posting. Art, writing, music, do something no one will see. Let it be real. Disconnect. Temporarily remove the performance layer. No photos, no captions, just experience. Practice anonymity. Go where no one knows you. Say things that aren't on brand. Break your image. Define your values. Who are you when no one's watching? Who do you admire in private? Let go of metrics. Use them strategically if needed, but never let them define your self-worth. The real you isn't clickable. It isn't scalable. And that's exactly why it's sacred. Your identity was never a product. It was a process. Messy, beautiful, alive. But the world convinced you to turn it into inventory. Now it's time to stop selling yourself and start becoming yourself. Again, next, freedom for sale, how capitalism redefined liberation. In the final segment, we'll uncover the last and most seductive, hijacking, freedom itself. You think you're chasing liberation, but you're being sold a leash. And every time you think you're free, you just bought a newer cage. Segment 5, Freedom for Sale, how capitalism redefined liberation. What if everything you thought was freedom was actually part of your cage? What if freedom of choice was just the freedom to pick your favorite prison? This is the final and most dangerous, way capitalism hijacked your mind, not by taking your freedom, but by selling it back to you. Redefining freedom. Let's ask the question, what does freedom mean to you? For many, it's simple, the freedom to buy what you want, to say what you think, to live how you choose. But beneath that definition is a trap, because all of those freedoms are defined by consumption. And when freedom becomes a product, you're no longer free. Freedom as consumer choice. Imagine walking into a giant shopping mall. You can buy anything. Fashion, identity, spirituality, politics. You feel empowered, limitless. But here's the twist. Everything in that mall was designed by someone else. Your tastes were cultivated by ads. Your preferences were shaped by trends. Your values were fed to you in branded packaging. That's not autonomy. That's curated illusion. Capitalism doesn't oppress you with bars. It seduces you with options. You're told, buy what makes you happy. But if you stop buying, would you still know what happiness is? The internalization of the market. Freud described the superego as the internal voice of society. In capitalism, that voice says, more is better. You are what you own. Freedom is having options. But that voice is not neutral. It's a mouthpiece for systems that benefit when you equate spending with living. Capitalism turns freedom into a subscription. Pay monthly for your self-image. Pay weekly for your peace of mind. Radical autonomy. Let's be clear, capitalism isn't going anywhere soon. But you can begin a subtle, subversive resistance. Here's how. 1. Recognize what's real. Strip away the branding. Ask, what do I want without the marketing? 2. Choose less. The fewer things you depend on, the fewer ways the system can control you. 3. Decouple value from price. Not everything valuable can be bought. In fact, most can't. 4. Find joy without purchase. Learn to feel alive without buying something first. 5. Talk about this. Spread the virus of reflection. Freedom starts in the mind. A philosophy of liberation. Marx believed liberation meant the end of exploitation. Freud believed freedom came from self-awareness and the integration of the unconscious. Together, they offer a map. Marx says, know how the system exploits you. Freud says, know how you exploit yourself. Combine both, and you get not just political freedom, but psychological freedom. The kind you can't sell. The kind that doesn't perform. The kind that quietly, powerfully, just is. The most dangerous act. In a world that sells distraction, paying attention is a revolution. In a system that rewards productivity, being present is resistance. And in an economy built on control, choosing yourself again and again is war. You won't be praised for it. You won't trend for it. But you'll know. And no system, no brand, can ever take that from you. You've been told you're free. But freedom doesn't come from permission. It comes from awareness. You were born free. You were conditioned into servitude. Now you choose. Not what to buy, not what to chase, but who to be when no one is watching. That's freedom. Real, radical, and profitable freedom. And it starts right here, right now, with you. If this message disturbed you, that's a good sign. It means your real self is still awake. Leave a comment below. Tell me where you saw the trap in your own life. Let's talk, not as consumers, but as conscious minds. And if you're ready to keep peeling back the layers, subscribe, because we're not done, not even close.